I mean, it's interesting because one name that comes to mind when you think of larger than life is a man that you've had the opportunity to spend more time with a lot of other journalists, and Muhammad Ali is one of those guys that I still will go down a rabbit hole of just YouTube clips of him. I mean, it's in my blood a little bit. My name's Tyson, born in 1987, the year after Mike Tyson won his first world champs, age 20. And so growing up, there was always a respect for the sport of boxing, but more than that, there was a respect for the hype that goes along with boxing, or at least equal to. And no one does it better than him. And larger than life seems to be the perfect description. And I can't imagine him having a moment where he wasn't larger than life. But I mean, spending a week with him as you did you get much of a difference of opinion in the man that he actually was?
Actually, it was a lot of people ask me, like, what's the best interview you ever did? And Ali was a childhood hero of mine. And so for me, it was the best because I got to meet my childhood hero, and he was actually over the course of a week. And this is after he had Parkinson's disease. This is 2003. He first won the heavyweight championship in 1963. This is 40 years later. I grew up with Ali, standing up to the government and saying, I'm not entering the military. I don't believe in this Vietnam War. Basically thinking he might have to go to jail, and having his ability to fight taken away, but just sticking to his beliefs and going to the Supreme Court and winning his case and coming back and fighting, the epic fights of his life after a 3.5-year layoff. And basically the week that I spent with him, and I got to meet with him after that, but in that week, I was with a man who was shaking uncontrollably at times, who on one day took the medication for his Parkinson's disease. It turned his tongue orange. We're sitting on the couch talking, and he just literally fell asleep in mid-conversation, his leg jangling into mine. And, other days, he couldn't speak above a whisper, but guests would come over to the house, and he'd be doing magic tricks for them. And there were days where he had to travel long distance. We were at the Special Olympics in Dublin, Ireland, and he was invited to sort of get the festivities off with a bang. He was on a golf cart, and he was driven around the track at Croke Park, and there's 80,000 people around going crazy. And here is a moment where you're talking about the larger than life element came in, because he had a friend named Howard Bingham who was a photographer, and Howard met Ali in like 1962 when they were both very young, and they became very close friends. And I became friends with Howard. And so I'm down with them while this golf cart is about to circle the stadium. And Ali gets on, Howard gets on, he waves to me like, come on on. And so like you jump on this cart, and you get a sense of what it must feel like to be Ali. Now, you're a track star. I don't know how often you felt like this, the wave of noise that comes down from the stands as you're maybe sprinting the last 100 yards in a tight race. But this really was something I'd never ever like heard, because I was always in the 80,000 people screaming. I wasn't on the golf cart waving to the 80,000 like Ali. And it really was wild just seeing this energy from the crowd coming down on him and sort of crashing. And then he would wave and the energy would roll back up to the top of the stadium, and then it would come down on him again. And so I'm thinking back on it, it was one of the most unique moments of my life, because I got an appreciation and an understanding of what it felt like to be in that situation. I don't know what was in his head. I could only know what all that wave of energy felt like when it was washing over you. And then, like, you have a moment like that, and then I think it might have been the next day or the day after that, we went to a conference at the Special Olympics, and Nelson Mandela was there. And after they did sort of a joint interview where Ali at that point, he couldn't really say that much. And Mandela was guiding things around. Quincy Jones, the producer, he came on stage. And then after, Ali and Mandela went off to talk, and it was basically, come on, Cal, let's go. And then, the next, you just find yourself in the middle of a conversation with Nelson Mandela, and he's telling you what it was like to be in prison, and hearing about Ali and feeling a sense of hope from Ali. And you're realizing, my God, like, my hero was Mandela's hero. And so you're having these moments like in the stadium with this crashing of energy around you, and then these moments where you're with people that like have moved nations, but they're very casual moments where they're just explaining to you how things were. And then it comes down to moments where we actually went into his gym, and I sort of gotten into a mock fight with him where we put on the boxing gloves, but we didn't hit each other. We were both hitting the heavy bag, and it got competitive because I was actually imitating his arch rival, my style. And it's kind of a long, involved story, but what had happened is, like 10 years before, I had trained for 6 months to get in the ring with the junior welterweight champ, Julio Cesar Chavez. And for the 6 months that I trained in exactly the style of Ali's arch nemesis, Smoking Joe Frazier. So when we're in the gym, I get down in Joe's crouch, and I could even sound like Joe Frazier. And I'm bobbing and weaving like Joe, and I'm just throwing the left hooks into the bag in the same style that Joe would. And Ali looked over at me the first time I did this. I swear his eyebrows arched like a sleeping lion awakened by an old familiar scent. He said, "You good," he said. And then he went to the bag. And so we're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, till finally, and this is a moment like I'll never forget. He like understood why I was pushing him with this back and forth on the bag, because I wanted to see what was still in the well. Yeah, he had Parkinson's, like nobody understood. One day he'd be in a wheelchair, the next day you'd see him moving freely. What was going on? And he literally waved me to the corner of the gym, and I saw something I never thought I'd ever see again. He started to dance like he did as a young champion around this heavy bag. And as he did, there were mirrors on all four walls of the gym, and he's looking at himself in the mirrors as he's dancing around the bag. And as he's looking at himself in the mirror, his chest came up and his chin came up. And then he's dancing, and then he stopped, pivoted, and he threw like 50 punches faster than my eyes could pick them up. I was in shock. But then, as he turned away from the bag, his left foot crossed over his right, and he started to stumble. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what did you just do, Cal? And then he's going down. And as he's falling, my mind is just screaming, no, 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 no. And he goes down on these mats next to the bag. At first, I didn't know what to do. I was paralyzed, but I burst through it and I ran over to help lift him up. And just before I got to him, he had flipped on his back and started doing sit-ups and stomach crunches. Like, he's playing with me, man. And he goes over. There was a super leg press, grips the handle, it had hundreds of pounds on it, and he's pushing it back and forth. And at this point, I'm saying, like, you don't have to do anymore, man. I see what's in the well. It's okay. It's okay. And he said, feels good.